everyone, welcome back to We Are Wool People. My name's Ailsa and on this channel we talk about knitting. So how are you all? I have missed you. I've sat down about 4 times to start this video and finally the planets have aligned and I'm ready to talk about what's been going on. Right, well, the first thing that has been happening around here is that I actually reached 2,000 subscribers, which is a huge milestone, and thank you everyone for subscribing, and yay to We Are Wool People, and here's to another 2,000 subscribers in the next 12 months or so. Anyway, thank you so much for everyone who's subscribed, everyone who's sitting here. Let's start talking about knitting straight away. Things that I actually did. What do they say? Don't work with children or animals? No, I've got to do something about that. Hang on a second, sorry. So today I'm going to catch you up on what's been going on around here. We went to the Australian Yarn Show in Canberra a couple of weekends ago. It was a great event. I'll give you some highlights from that event. And I have made a fair bit of progress on a couple of the whips that were disastrous in February. So March is looking much more promising than February. And then at the end, I will talk a little bit about my plans for over the next few months. So on the 8th and 9th of March, Donna and I went to Canberra for the weekend for the Australian Yarn Show. And when we met for breakfast, we discovered that we had coincidentally both worn pink, and almost exactly the same shade of pink. So our day began by us wearing the same colour. And thank you to everybody who said hello on the day. It was really amazing and I was very, very appreciative. I was both humbled and flattered at the same time. I really enjoyed knowing that there are kind of real humans out there watching, and I really, really loved meeting any of you who came and said hello. That was great. Also, great thanks to Donna for being my press photographer, and I hope she doesn't have any assumptions about getting on the payroll. I was taking photos when that happened early on in the day, and I kind of stopped doing that because after about an hour or so I thought, what are you doing? You honestly, you really, I suddenly became very self-conscious and thought that it was a ridiculous, egotistical thing to do, so I stopped doing it. But the event location, which was at the Realm Hotel in Canberra, and I don't know if you're familiar with that, but that is a hotel kind of precinct. It's quite new. Well, I think it's new. I'm not really that familiar with Canberra, but it's a hotel that's in a kind of almost a cul-de-sac, and in that cul-de-sac is the development that is the hotel precinct, and it's full of restaurants and bars, and the actual beer garden that is associated with the Realm Hotel is huge, and it rambles, you know, forever around it, both indoors and outdoors. And that's where they serve breakfast in the hotel, and there's drinks and refreshments and food available all day and well into the night in that location. It was a fantastic location for an event like this because it actually gave people various options for accommodation. We didn't stay in the Realm Hotel, we stayed in the hotel across the road, and the road is more of a lane really, and that hotel was really well priced. It had a cocktail bar on the roof. It was actually a really nice hotel. The rooms were fantastic, huge, and we really enjoyed it. We stayed for 2 nights. We stayed on the Friday night and the Saturday night, but we only went to the show on the Saturday. The show itself is a really immersive experience. It's 2 full days for the public of not only vendors and stall holders, but also there are talks that are free and there are workshops available all weekend. And Donna and I didn't do any workshops, mostly because actually they sold out really quickly. We were meaning to get to some of the talks, but unfortunately we didn't manage to do that either because we were too busy yapping in the stall holder area. The atmosphere on the day was really great. I think that more than just about shopping, I think you could really tell that everyone was enjoying talking to people and spotting all the hand knits and seeing all people from the industry that you might recognise from other YouTube channels, and generally just being part of the fantastic Australian knitting community. It was great to see so many Australian independent dyers under one roof, in ambient temperatures, something that is quite different from the Bendigo Sheep and Wool Show, which is outdoors and freezing. The venue was fantastic for that. There was a lot of hustling going on, and I guess I was doing a bit of hustling myself. But I like that because I really think that companies that are really trying to keep current and trying to build their businesses are good for the industry, because the industry has to be an evolving and a dynamic place, doesn't it? Because otherwise you're going to end up with, yarn stores where they're not engaged with the industry or engaged with the modern or current trends, and that's not good for modern knitting, is it? Because what we do want to do is we want to develop. So thank you to all those hustlers. You were doing a fantastic job. Oh, it's just started raining. Can you hear that? I might close the window so that you don't get all that pitter-patter. Let's get at her. One of the good things was that it wasn't just a case of going through the stalls and looking at all the yarn and then having to retreat back to your accommodation, which I think the Bendigo Sheep and Wool Show is a bit like that. There's nowhere really at the Bendigo Sheep and Wool Show for you to gather socially, because it's outdoors and because it's freezing, and they don't have spaces where you can sit and knit and chat. Their food stalls are all food trucks where it's a case of grab what you can and eat it standing up. You can, of course, probably go and... Well, no, not really. There's not really anywhere for you to gather at the Australian Sheep and Wool Show in Bendigo, whereas the Australian Yarn Show, there are plenty of places for you to gather afterwards, which I think is really good. That beer garden that's in the ground floor of the Realm Hotel is huge, and it's got such a fantastic, comfortable atmosphere with little booths as well as more open areas that, and it's indoor and outdoor. And I just thought that was a great venue and a great place to sit afterwards, where you could sit and knit. And I think everyone felt very welcome, and I think that like Donna and I, we approached another two people who were sitting and knitting and said, "Oh, can we join you?" And I don't think they minded. They said yes, and we did, so that happened. I met Tash from Mostly Knitting, who I had never met before. We met in the hall, where the vendors were, and then later we sat and had a really good chat, and down in the bar area. What a lovely person she is. That was a real highlight for me, meeting Tash. She was really nice. We could have probably talked for hours, and it was great. We had to go, or she had to go, but and I guess meeting her for the first time made us realise as well how actual close we live to each other, and how I'm surprised our paths haven't crossed before. To be honest, I think they might have over the years. Certainly Tash and Donna recognised each other from Ravelry D-stashes. So I suppose I may as well show you what I bought. As old-fashioned as this might sound, it's quite annoying that my husband has actually gone to live in Queensland, because all these little outdoor household maintenance tasks are not getting done by anyone, and I should probably step up. It just started raining, and in my line of vision I can see that my gutters are blocked, and I've got water dripping all the way down onto the... Anyway, whatever, it's very boring, isn't it? I won't talk about that anymore. I didn't go in with intentions of buying much yarn at all, and I didn't... The haul isn't enormous, but I did buy a few things that I couldn't resist. All of them have got a project associated with them, and none of them are going into the unknown stash, but there are a few things that I've got to show you. I'll start with the most minor of the purchases. I bought this little lanolin rich hand balm from Ash and Eve. and it's the fragrance is sweet orange mandarin, lavender, bergamot and cedarwood. It's not really heavily fragranced, and it wasn't very expensive, but it's really lovely to put in my little knitting tin. It's a solid balm, and it's really lanolin rich, which, you know, comes from a sheep, so we like that. It's very emollient, and it smells really good, and I think that you should go and buy some. The other thing that I was really excited to see at this Lush corner is the Sea Knit range of knitting needles, and I bought one just to try because I really have been looking at these online. They're Japanese, and they've got a really, really smooth swivel cord, and they are they're bamboo needles. Now, I usually use metal needles. I really like my ChiaoGoo interchangeables, but sometimes I think that it's good to have a bamboo needle if you are knitting with something that's really lightweight. And I have got a few things on the needles at the moment that are quite lightweight, and I think that you know, using a bamboo needle means that you don't get any kind of distortion in your stitches from the weight of the metal needle. So this is what I bought. I bought a 275 millimeter Sea Knit curve. I will say this, the cord on this needle is really lightweight. When I was swatching with this needle over that weekend, it was completely weightless. So I thought that was really nice. And the swivel mechanism is as smooth as silk. That's the Sea Knit curve range of knitting needles from, they're from Japan, but I bought that one from this Lush corner. I love her display. I always seem to find something from this Lush corner. I'm a big fan. The next thing I bought was some Tarndie fingering weight Polwarth and silk in quantity sufficient for me to be able to have another crack at the Pochiola, which, as you know, I made last year and was not a success. Not because of the pattern and not because of the yarn I chose, because of it was a me problem. I actually think I've done the whole thing wrong. So what colours did I get? I got this cream for the main colour, and my two contrasting colours are this silvery grey and a navy. I think that that is going to be a very neutral and sort of understated combination. And when I got it home and looked at it, I did sort of think to myself, oh, is that a bit dull? Do I need something that's got a bit of a pop? So I went stash diving and found this. This is a really ancient skein of, give me a minute, postmenopausal brain fog. Can't remember, but it's discontinued, this yarn, and this colour was called Pope's Slippers, and it's a beautiful, clear, primary red, probably leaning a little bit, it's on the screen, it's a bit more orange than what it really is. It probably leans a little bit towards the cool side slightly. But I think that if I get that in there somewhere as a pop, then that colour combination for a Pochiola is going to be really lovely. I really am happy with that. The next purchase I got was from a company called Little Woolie Makes. And this is a hand-dyed mohair silk blend in a lace weight in this absolutely, unbelievably beautiful colour. It's called Cool Shark. And I spoke to Little Woolie Makes dyer quite a bit because the colours of her silk mohair were just absolutely gorgeous. And we were talking about the possibility of maybe having a silk mohair advent, because there's a pattern by Clow called the Kintra, and the Kintra has got a version in the sample versions that have been made, because, you know, Clow is just brilliant at getting a lot of testers and testing in a lot of sizes and a lot of different yarns. She gives people options. She doesn't expect anyone to go and shell out for really expensive yarn. She really has got a range of yarns in all her patterns, and a range of yarn weights for that matter, and a huge range of sizes. There's so much value in Rebecca Clow's patterns. And one of the ones that dropped last month was the Kintra, which I really, really like. And one of the versions of the Kintra that Rebecca's got is a mohair version. The colours that she's got in her mohair version are really towards the autumnal kind of falling leaves colours, with the golds and the reds and the oranges. They're not really the colours that I wear, although I do love looking at them. I'd love to do a silk mohair version of a Kintra, and what it calls for is up to 25 colours of silk mohair, but you only need, less than 25 grams of each one of them. If you had to go and buy individual skeins of silk mohair in order to give yourself an 11 colour plus, between 11 and 25 colour, I think that the mohair version she has got 11 colours. But if you were going to buy 25 skeins or even 11 skeins of silk mohair and buy a whole skein, you're going to have a lot of leftovers. So I love the idea of a silk mohair advent or a silk mohair mini set. And they're very hard to find. They're very rare. So we were talking about that for a little while, and I could not leave Cool Shark behind. So I've got 3 skeins of Cool Shark, and I'm probably going to make a single strand silk mohair kind of blouse, potentially with ties and maybe a little peplum. I saw a pattern like that today, and I've been looking at it a few times. The pattern doesn't have that great reviews, but maybe I'll be able to work it out. But that's my plan with the little Woolie Makes silk mohair. And that was it for the yarn that I bought whilst I was at the Australian Yarn Show. But as you do on the way home for the Australian Yarn Show, my trajectory on the way home goes via Canberra, Goulburn, Wollongong, and on the way is Blackwattle Yarns. So on the Sunday morning on our way home, we swung by Blackwattle Yarns. We talked to some alpacas and some llamas, and we squished some yarn. One thing I will say about the Blackwattle Yarns yarn setup is that it's shrunk by more than half from when I was there this time last year. They've put tables and chairs for their cafe inside what used to be the space for yarn, and the yarn itself has squished into less than half the space. What has grown though is their dye studio and their one-day dyeing workshops. I saw the dyer, I think, and I didn't talk to her. I wish I had have actually. And I actually saw the guy that runs the joint too. He was talking to some people who were having a coffee. And I wish I had have, in retrospect, had some sort of questions or some topics prepared to talk to them about, but I didn't. I did take quite a lot of footage inside the shop, and then I bought some yarn, which, when you see this, you'll laugh. I'll tell you why you'll laugh when you see this, is because, does that look familiar to you? Do you also watch Tash from Mostly Knitting? And do you also know that I said in my last podcast that I'm just going to give her a ring and ask her what is my next project, because really most things that she likes I seem to like, and most things that she knits I seem to want to knit. And we only met for the first time the day before this happened, and then we both went to Blackwattle at different times during the day and bought exactly the same thing, in exactly the same colour. I bought this colourway of their Sweet Pea Fade, which is exactly the same colourway that Tash bought, except she got one with a neutral skein that is light coloured, and I bought as a neutral skein to go with it this colour. I bought 2 of these in a colour called Parting Ways to pair with that fade to make. At the time I thought probably a Kintra, but I have since spied another pattern that's been in my queue for a really long time that I might swap out the Kintra idea and make this jacket with the pattern entirely in Danish. Is there anyone from Denmark watching this podcast? Because I'm going to try and make a pattern that's only in Danish through Google Translate, which I've already done ages ago and found that the Google translation is still a bit enigmatic for me. But it's an all-over colour work jacket, and I think I might make it in these two yarns. And that is the end of the things that I bought when I went to the Australian Yarn Show. So now I think I'll show you what's been going on with the whips. Now, number one whip is the Manon Jacket from Moreca Knits, which you may recall from last time was way too big. Well, I started it again in a smaller size on a different needle, I think. Could have been the same needle, whatever. Started it again, smaller size. Have gotten this far. I have done the back panel and I have started the contiguous shoulder increases. I've gotten past the point where the shoulder tips, so I've gotten around the back, past the point to the tip of the shoulder, cast on around the front for the front neckline, and it's a jacket, and now I'm working back and forth just straight for a little while until I get to the underarm split point. I'm doing this on a 3mm needle using 3 yarns held together. The Ashford Merino boucle and 2 strands of the Holstgarn Titicaca held together. It's all in the cream. The Ashford Merino's undyed and the Titicaca is in the cream. It's very slow going because it's a 3mm needle and the entire thing is 1x1 moss stitch or 1x1 seed stitch if you are in America. So that's going to be a bit of knitting. The next thing I've got to show you is my Eken sweater by the Knit Pearl Girl, which I am making in a combination of Knitting for Olive soft silk mohair in the colour Unicorn Purple and Noro Silk Garden Sock Solo in the colour T81, romantically named T81, which is also purple. Do you remember when I showed you last time that there was a really big stripe across the back shoulder? And thank you to those of you who said you quite liked it and you didn't mind it. I appreciated that, but I couldn't stand it. I couldn't come at it. So I ripped it all out, started again, and I'm right down. I've got a long way to go. I mean, I've done a lot. I don't have much to go at all. I'm up to the back rib, and you can see that I've actually striped in that offending skein that was full of this mustard colour that doesn't appear anywhere else in the rest of the yarn hardly. I've striped it in here. There has been a lot of yarn management in terms of colour in this project so far. I've done helical knitting all the way through. I've been really careful to make sure that the helical knitting across the body and the sleeves was from the same balls of yarn on both sleeves. So there's been a lot of stopping at one sleeve and then going to the other sleeve and doing the same amount and then coming back and forth, introducing new balls into the body in a really structured way so as I didn't get any sort of harsh striping. With the Noro, you can only do what you can do, but I think I've done a pretty good job of turning it into what I think now is just a tweedy jumper. I am going to have to start introducing more of this stripe that's got the mustard in it as I get towards the bottom, but it actually looks a little bit more noticeable on the screen than what it does in real life, and I'm really happy with the way that it's come out. I didn't do... In the pattern in the neckline, you get an alternative to do either this really long... Do you want to hop down? Okay, off you go. This really long turtleneck or a funnel neck. I've done kind of a bit of a hybrid of that. I haven't got much of a neck. I've got a pretty short neck. So I've done a few rows and turned it over, and I think it looks good. I've got some end weaving to do. But it's 2x2 rib. 2x2 rib is really very aesthetically pleasing and fast to knit. Way better than a 1x1 rib, which can look a bit janky. But this 2x2 rib looks really good. I'm really happy with it. I did, for the first time, a rook bind off, which is a very, very, very fast and easy dupe for an Italian sewn bind off. And even though I kind of stuffed it up and did it on with the wrong side facing, or not the wrong side, the incorrect side facing, because you're supposed to do it with the wrong side facing. I thought I was doing it with the wrong side facing, but then I forgot that with a neck, if you turn it over, then it's the opposite side that's actually going to be at the front, right? So I did my rook bind off on the incorrect side. But I'll show you the rook bind off up close, and I'll leave a link to it up on the screen and in the bio, because that bind off is, like I said, a dupe for an Italian sewn bind off with almost no effort required in terms of, knit on, purl off, knit on, purl off. There's none of that. It actually is really fast, and I think that the result of it is quite clean. Certainly in terms of the effort to result ratio, the rook bind off is giving you a lot of bang for your buck, because it's so easy. It's literally the simplest thing I've ever seen. I'm surprised that, it's not more popular or more heard of. And maybe it is, and I've been living under a rock. The rook bind off for the neckline worked really well, and I've actually hidden some of the mustard yarn in there under the fold over, so when it folds over you won't be able to see it. And I have done a fair bit of the sleeves, but I must say I'm in a position now where I'm doing a little bit of one sleeve, a little bit of the other sleeve, and a little bit of the bottom, and a little bit of one sleeve, and a little bit of the other sleeve, and a little bit of the bottom, to trick my brain into not finding the when you get towards the end of a project, you're so keen. I find that I'm so keen to get it finished that I almost can't stand it. I really want to finish it, but the knitting is so boring that I'm in this sort of horrible kind of roller coaster spiral towards the end, where I just want to get on to the next thing, and I want to finish it, but I don't want to finish it because it's boring, and it's quite destructive. Because what happens is that I think sometimes for me, I find that my quality of knitting towards the end really suffers from this kind of strange mentality where I am desperate to finish it but don't want to finish it, and finding it really boring, but at the same time I just want to do it faster. I'm sure you know what I mean. So this is what I'm up to. I'm at the rib at the bottom. I've got a fair bit of the rib at the bottom to go. I have done 30 rows on the sleeves, and I've noticed that the sleeves actually are quite big. They're quite wide, so I'm going to, as I've been invited by the Knit Pearl Girl, to change the number of rows between decreases and reduce those if I want my sleeve to taper, which I do want it to taper a little bit more. So I'm going to take up Sophie from the Knit Pearl Girl's invitation. But here it is. It's nearly finished, and I love it. It's really humid here today and quite warm, so we're ready for this kind of wintry sweater. And I was in the Sunshine Coast last week, and I went knitting at the Banana Bender with the knit group called Twisted Stitches that happens every once a month on a Wednesday night. And I was advised up there that if I'm in Queensland for the winter, I may never get an opportunity to wear a mohair and merino jumper. But I've got some colder things to do, and I do spend a bit of time in New South Wales, and I'm sure I will get some wear out of it because I really do love the colour. So that's what was a disaster and is now a success from my Eken sweater from the Knit Pearl Girl. Coming along quite well. What do you reckon? Oh, I've got some tips. I've got some knitting tips for when you're knitting in a round on a sweater that is big and kind of unwieldy and you're using 2 yarns held together, and also I'm helical knitting to stripe in the yarn so that you don't get the strong colour changes. First of all, what you need to do is, if you finish the sleeves, tuck the sleeves into the jumper. Tuck them into the jumper so that when you're going around and around at the bottom, you don't have the sleeves flapping around. And the second thing that I recommend is placing the 2 yarns that you're using into 2 separate Ziploc bags, and so that when you're managing as you're going around helical knitting them in, that it's a lot easier just to move the plastic bags around than to actually pick up the 2 balls each time. They are little tips. The other thing that you can do that I know that Brooklyn Tweed recommends is that he actually puts the whole project into a plastic bag and sort of just sticks the bit of knitting that you actually need out of the plastic bag and keeps it all enclosed together. You could also do it in a pillowcase or something like that, so that he finds it much easier to go around. They're little 2 tips I can give you for knitting big things in the round when you've got a lot of balls to wrangle with. So next up I'm going to talk to you about some plans. In the 90s, I used to work in a pub on the river in Hammersmith in London, and I was trained by the publican when I was a barmaid that on nights when it was really, really busy and the crowd was overwhelming at the bar and they were all drunk, you were sober, that all you had to do was concentrate on 3 people: who you were serving now, who was next, and who was after that. And if you just got those 3 people on a rolling system throughout the night, you didn't ever need to worry about how many people were actually waiting, because all you had to do was serve the person you're serving now, know who was next, and know who was after that. And as long as you kept that going, then everyone would move and you'd get through your customers. And I have found that to be sound advice in several areas of life since then. And one of the areas of life that I found that to be sound advice in is my prospective knitting project queue. All I really have to worry about is what I've got on the needles now, what's going to be next, and what's up after that. And as long as those 3 things keep rolling over, then I do find that I do get through my knitting projects. So in that regard, what I've got on the needles now is my Eken sweater. It's getting towards the end. So then what is my next focus is going to be my Manon Jacket. And what have I got after that? Well, I do have a couple of long-term whips that I think might come into play. But usually at that point, if I've got one finished, one up next, I can indulge myself with a sneaky cast on. So in April, I've got a bit of a window of where there's a bit of an opportunity for a sneaky cast on, because I, as you know, have got a plan to cast on a Milestones dress. Now, I have wanted a Milestones dress for a really long time. I had a Milestones dress, I think, on my plans video this time last year when the channel was brand new. And I've swatched a few different yarns for it. I made with the knitting, the yarn, the pattern is designed for the Knitting for Olive Pure Silk. And I made a vest Claire in that last year. Now, I really did enjoy that knit, and I still wear that, and I did really like the kind of vibe. It gave a real surfy, hippie, relaxed vibe when I knitted the vest Claire. And I do like it, but I have found that yarn, it isn't wearing that well. I still like the softness of it, and I think it's got that really super beachy kind of cheeseclothy boho look about it. But I don't want my Milestones dress to wear like that. I would prefer the Milestones dress that I make had a little bit more structure, and actually a little bit, structure might not be the word, I just want it to wear a bit better. And so I have swatched with the Isaiah Trio in this really gorgeous vibrant teal colour. And I did this swatch, I'm pretty sure on the the 275 needle that I bought. I'm pretty sure I swatched on that 275 needle. And I'm really happy with the fabric of it. It does look very sheer on camera with the lighting being what it is. But it isn't actually that sheer on a body. And I'm pretty sure that, for me anyway, that a full knitted dress in a cellulose-based fibre is going to require a bit of an undergarment anyway, in the form of a slip or something that does a bit more work than that. Maybe a Spanx or something. But anyway, I'm not worried about having to wear something underneath this dress. I don't want to go down any further needle sizes. I'm certainly, if I'm going to knit a full-length dress or even a midi dress on a 2.5 metre needle or a 2.25 millimetre needle rather, that's going to be an epic project, right? And as it is, it's epic project enough. So I'm really enjoying this swatch that I've done on the Isia Trio, and I really do like this colour. I think that something dark is probably what's called for, again, with the forgivingness of the fabric. So here's the yarn in the ball. And that's Isia Trio 1 in the colour, I think it's a petrol or a teal colour. At the moment, I'm happy with that. And that's my firm plan for the Milestones dress. Certainly in terms of colour, I might grab a ball of the thicker one. I think it could be called Trio 2, and see if that one thickness up gives a more pleasing fabric. But I tried that before with a thicker silk, and I didn't like it. I thought the fabric was too dense, whereas I think that this is actually quite a crunchy fabric, but it's got a beautiful luster from the linen and the viscose that's in it. And so that's my plan. But I'm not going to knit that until May, because I think I'm going to knit that with Tash from Mostly Knitting. I think we're going to cast on our Milestones dresses together in May, to give ourselves a bit of support and encouragement to finish it, because it's a bit of an epic project. So that leaves me with a little bit of a window in April. My dad is 80 in August, and I have promised him a knitted sweater. And he deserves a knitted sweater because he's a good guy. And I've probably mentioned before, but he goes fishing every year around his birthday on a fishing trip down the coast. And he loves fishing and boats and all things sort of, fishing related. So I'm thinking about making my dad a halibut sweater. So I want to make Dad's halibut sweater in Sandnes Garn Peergynt, a yarn that I've never seen, nor have I ever bought. But there is a new company that's just been launched in Australia, an online yarn store called Yarniecopia. And the person behind that store's name is Erica, and I met her when I was at the Australian Yarn Show in Canberra. So what this company does is that it spotlights a yarn brand monthly is the plan. And the yarn for the month of April is Sandnes Garn. The brand is Sandnes Garn. So Erica collates orders from people for the month for Sandnes Garn. And at the end of the month, she's going to place a bulk order, have the yarn sent to her, and then she's going to distribute it out amongst the customers, which is really great because it gives people the opportunity to buy yarns that they wouldn't normally buy without the double postage costs, and yarns that are difficult to obtain in Australia. Now, Sandnes Garn is held by a couple of online yarn stores in Australia, but Sandnes Garn won't ship to Australia if you order from their website directly. There is no full range of Sandnes Garn yarns available from any yarn store in Australia, although there are a couple who do have quite a comprehensive range. But with the Yarniecopia business model, you can order any of their yarns, Sandnes Garn yarns in April, in any colour you like. There is a minimum order of 10 balls for each yarn quality. But after that, they don't have to be bought in blocks of 10. After you buy 10, your next block can be 5. And so my dad is actually a big guy. His nickname is Buddha, give you an indication of what kind of body type he might have. So with Dad's halibut sweater, I'm definitely going to need more than 10 balls of the peer gint in the main colour, and probably it'll be less than 5 balls that I'll need for the contrasting colour for the halibut sweater. But I'm going to buy in April from Erica Sandnesgarn peer gint, which I find quite exciting because I would like to support a new yarn store initiative in Australia. I do actually already have plans to knit Dad a sweater in peer gint, and I've never seen it. So I thought I'd share Yarniecopia with you, which is spotlighting Sandnesgarn yarns in April. In the past, I don't know if you know, that Sandnesgarn only really allowed you to avail yourself of their pattern booklets or their patterns if you bought the yarn, and they didn't sell their patterns individually, they only sold the booklets. I think they're moving away from that kind of model now, and you'll see on the Yarniecopia website that she's actually selling bundles of the individual patterns from the current Sandnesgarn booklet. There are some really, really gorgeous sweaters in the current booklet. So on that note, I'm going to love you and leave you. Thank you for hanging out with me today for our little catch-up. That was fun. Next time, I'm going to do a pattern roundup, but I'm going to do it from the perspective of what's out there on some of the high street fashion lookbooks for autumn. So I've been looking at the autumn fashion lookbooks out there that are for the Australian high street fashion chains, and I've noticed that some of the knitwear that's current out there, particularly in some of the higher end fashion houses, I think is drawing very heavily on our hand knitting community. There's a couple of spring designs from Me and M, for example, in the UK that are identical to two of Susanna Cartinen's current knitwear patterns. And also some of the kind of quirky accessories that I've seen in our knitwear community are really filtering down into the high street autumn lookbooks in Australia. So my next video, I think I'm going to take about 5 looks from autumn lookbooks in Australian high street fashion, and I'm going to try and dupe them with some patterns, and we'll really sort of, deep dive and dissect what is inspiring these patterns, because I'm finding it very interesting at the moment. Spoiler alert, the hood is not only big in the knitting community, it's also really big out there on the fashion high street, as is the collar, the kind of dicky, which being made very popular by Petite Knits, My Favourite Things, and some of the other kind of, the big hitters out there in the Scandi knitting pattern world. They're translated straight away into the high street fashion lookbooks too for autumn. And also the cape and the kind of sweater scarf, the fake sweater scarf, that's out there too, interestingly. And if you like the sound of that, then why don't you subscribe? Or not. I am delighted that you've been watching me today. If you've gotten this far, blimey, thanks so much, and I will see you on the next one.
Open air, side by side we sway there in all the colors.